Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Durarara and Durarara 2. So, I overall enjoyed the series because it did a really good job of melding together the supernatural and just like everyday life kind of stuff, while also rounding out a cast of characters that you could get invested in. So, the main kind of premise of this is pretty much Sleepy Hollow. We've got a headless rider running around Ikebukuro in Japan, and it's kind of cool to see because it doesn't feel like a strain believability. You're at first like, this is kind of weird, but you see it just kind of working out with what's going on. It never kind of like breaks your suspension of disbelief. It just keeps going in like interesting and different directions, though at some points it takes some weird turns that honestly didn't need to be, to kind of expand the cast out to a point that it's like, okay, these characters that you've introduced have not been as fleshed out as the other ones that we've seen. And we've got an interesting cast of characters to begin with. The main arc and kind of thoroughfare throughout both series is Celti, who is the headless rider, and her main objective is to find her head because she had woken up one day and her head was gone. And of course, her partner with that, well, wants to be her boyfriend and lover, is Shinra. And they do eventually form a pretty cool relationship that is kind of weird because he and his father have experimented on Celti, and she, of course, is a supernatural entity, so she has regenerative powers, she doesn't die easily, and would live longer than Shinra. And her father was the one that used a demon blade to separate her from her head and memory, so it's like, okay. She kind of takes it better than I thought she would, but she's always kind of perpetually pissed off when the father head comes into the picture, usually providing more comedic relief. So, they're kind of a very big thing, and part of the other group of people, Mikado, Masaomi, and Anri, who are high school students who each have, like, pretty big secrets. Mikado is the one who started up the dollars, who, of course, Celti is a big part of, and like chat room logs and stuff that we see. Masaomi used to be the leader of the Yellow Scarves, and Anri possesses the Demon Blade Psycha. And she kind of has to watch out because the blade wants to love people, and that means cut people. But she's put it into herself to such a way that she's able to contain the Demon Blade from doing these things. And of course, these three try and keep their secrets from each other as much as possible, but of course it comes to a head at the end of the first series, and more so at the end of the second series, because nobody learns to talk about their stuff until it gets to, crazy points, because Izaya is one of the central antagonists. He is the one that instigates all of the crap that's going on. And his main objective is, in the first series, is to create a pretty much gang war to try and awaken the head of Celti and hopefully get taken to Valhalla. That was one thing. I think he's just an asshole and kind of wants to sow chaos and be smarter than other people, while also trying to get his objective to prove that Shizuo Heiwajima is a monster and try and get him to either hurt someone or kill someone to prove that he's a monster, or kill him and thus proving he doesn't want to die, but if Shizuo kills him, that proves that he's a monster and everybody will take him out because he's freakishly strong, but also pretty awesome. Because whenever someone kind of like fucks with him or anybody else in his group, he can pick up like light posts, guardrails, vending machines, and like severely hurt people without killing them. And just seeing his rivalry with Izaya is pretty cool throughout the series. It's almost like a Thor and Loki kind of relationship where Izaya is the trickster causing mischief and Shizuo is kind of like the warrior dude going doing warrior things. So those are kind of like the bigger relationships. There's other characters that come in, like this one character that's kind of like a mix of Izaya and Mikado that comes in number 2 and attempts to kind of do his own kind of gang war thing, infiltrating the dollars, because the blue squares are what his original group was, and they were taken out by the Yellow Scars, and he's kind of using them as a police force working with Mikado, because the dollars after the first series start to go kind of bad. There's no rules of the dollars, so anybody can do whatever they want. But he's using these blue squares to try and clean it up and destroy the dollars, because Izai's pretty much manipulated him to thinking that this is the only way to fix and maintain his extraordinariness, and that leads him to contemplate suicide and almost try and do it at the end of the second series. I never really understood how he got to that leap. It just seemed that if there's anything about this series, it's like it took a couple leaps with that, and I'm like, okay, how do we get to that point? I kind of had a feeling it was going that route, but I'm like, whoa. Of course, towards the end, Celti is able to stop him from doing that, but seeing Mikado and Masaomi try and like get through that, because he brought back the Yellow Scarf to try and beat some sense into Mikado, but yet he had left at the end of the previous season to just go up with his girlfriend. It never really made any sense except just to advance the plot to the way that they wanted it, but it still kind of worked out in the end, because I didn't have as many problems because of how these characters kind of like completed their story arcs. Now, there were some characters that really didn't add that much, such as this Hollywood murder person who killed people and like Hollywood masks and everything. Her arc didn't really do anything for the series. Same with the introduction of the person who holds the original Psycha Demon Blade, coming out of nowhere and not really doing much except being the person trying to get Celti's head for a shadowy group of people later on. And I was like, okay, what the hell's going on with this? But yet everything kind of like works its way to its inevitable conclusion of kind of like the three group of high school students kind of like coming to terms with their secrets and kind of sharing it and being true friends with that, which is like, okay, cool. And Celti and Shinra working with their way, and just like all the rest of the people kind of like coming to their own sense of ordinary, because there's nothing, this show really shows that nothing is truly ordinary. We kind of get into like routines and whatnot, but yet then you look at what is going on in this series. There's a headless rider running around on a motorcycle. There's a dude who can pick up light posts and freaking guardrails and smack people halfway across town. There's a dude who was trying to manipulate like gangs of young people and Yakuza and trying to like kill people and everything, and just see how even though Mikado wanted to lead an extraordinary life, there's the balancing of what we think would be an extraordinary life versus like what we usually live. And how, yes, it may seem ordinary at certain points, but then out of nowhere, this kind of weird thing will pop up and be like, okay, that's kind of cool. So, I think it did a really good job of melding the supernatural with the kind of everyday life, and also just kind of like using Ikebukuro as a character in and of itself, of like showing like where the Yakuza and where the gangs are, and kind of like moving to its own kind of beat. And I really liked an effective thing that they did in regards to color, in that you see like certain characters walking in color, but like the rest of the masses would be grayed out. I thought that's an effective way to call attention to that, and also call attention to other people, because you'd see a dude like come out of nowhere and they're in color. It's like, oh, what importance or significance does that have with what's going on? And they just really did a really good job of like showcasing that and kind of making scenes a little bit more interesting that way, because you're like, okay, we know where to focus our attention and try and figure out what's going on. And I really also like the animation going on in this. It did a good job of like facial expressions and everything. The second series kind of did some weird things with certain facial expressions, in my opinion, with certain characters, such as Simon, the guy that runs well, he doesn't run, but he has a Russian sushi place. Some of his like the detail with his face sometimes would just be kind of off, and I don't know what was going on with it. But I'm like, okay, overall during action scenes and when supernatural stuff's going on, it's usually very spot on and pretty cool in what's going on, especially in regards to Celti, because they did a nice job of doing regular animation, mixing it with CGI with kind of the strange abilities that she could do, as well with the woman who could wield the original Psycha with like how it didn't have to always be a sword and just different kind of blades going everywhere. It's like, okay. So I would definitely recommend seeing this anime if you're really into character-driven kind of anime, as well as supernatural mixed with real life and all that. I think it did a very good and effective job at melding the tone of differing things and making sure that characters acted in ways that are true to the characters rather than how the plot kind of dictates. Now, granted, I do think that at certain points the plot dictated that someone got to a place faster, but I put that as more as they didn't effectively showcase what was going on, such as Mikado going for the suicide route, even though you kind of felt that that was going to be coming. And I would just really recommend seeing this anime if you're into supernatural, kind of everyday, character cool stuff. So, those are my opinions on the anime. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.